Welcome to the podcast Authors of the Pacific Northwest, where I connect authors with their readers. We also talk all about the author's inspiration, their journey to publication, and the authors will educate me and you, the listener, all about the business of writing. I'm your host, Vikki J. Carter, also known as the Author's Librarian. Hi there, podcast listeners. Thank you so much for coming back to the Authors of the Pacific Northwest. And today I have the honor of introducing you to Stefanie Fields. So Stefanie, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
I'm so glad to have you on, Stefanie. Before we started to hit record, everyone, I was apologizing. So I'm always happy to admit mistakes when they happen. This podcasting world is so interesting. So Stefanie and I did a recording a while ago for this episode, and it didn't record to my cloud. So that was a bummer. So we're here doing it again.
All right.
I love it. So thank you, Stefanie, for doing it again with me. So
Of course. I'm happy to talk to you again.
So let's get started with introducing yourself a little bit to my listeners, starting out with what region in the Pacific Northwest do you live in?
Yeah, I live in Bellingham, Washington, which is up in the tippy corner there, about an hour away from Canada. I was living in Canada for about 10 years and then just moved back right before the pandemic started. So it's been a bit difficult acclimating back with everything closed and everyone isolating. But slowly but surely, we're coming back out of our houses and
whatever the state was we were in for 2 years, right?
Exactly. That's all a blur now. And my sense of time is all messed up now. And how long ago something was, I'm like, well, I think it was a year. No, 3. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, I do feel like most of us will just erase that 2 years off of our whole brains. This too much happened.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot.
Good. Well, I am glad you're here in Washington, one of my favorite states. I was just thinking about how much I love the Pacific Northwest. I probably say it 100 times on this podcast, but I love Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and the whole region. And so I'm glad you're here with us. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to talk about your books, because your books are so beautiful and unique. And I want to make sure we spend a lot of time about the inspiration behind them. But what is your background?
Wonderful. Yeah. So I actually got my hypnotherapy degree here in Bellingham, Washington. Jamie Engholm was my teacher there, and she was just phenomenal. She's still my all-time favorite teacher of all teachers. And through that education, I learned about the power of our thoughts and positive words, positive thinking. And it kind of just sparked one time that I was like, oh, I wonder if I could utilize this in a children's book in some way, especially when there's that really cool window right before you fall asleep where you're open to suggestion when your subconscious is available. So most people read books to their kids when they're about to go to sleep. So it's like, oh, why not infuse that time with really positive words, really positive messages, and just nourish that right before they go into dreamland. So that's kind of where the books ended up coming from. I don't have any kids myself, but I do have a niece, and she was little at the time when I wrote these. And I always thought, writing a children's book was something I always wanted to do, but I felt like intimidated by it. I thought, oh, I don't have a degree in children's literature, or what am I to say and share with the world, And yeah. I certainly don't think we need any more ABC 1, 2, 3 books. So I was like, oh, what's worthy of a child's time that I can put out there? And my niece and I were reading a book together, and it just wasn't great, and even when she was so little at the time, we finished the book and she goes, well, that was dumb. And I thought, oh my goodness, like even she picked up on it. It wasn't really a great read. And I thought, well, the only difference between this author and me is they did it and I didn't. If this is a hardcover, nicely made book, then certainly I can do at least this good. So yeah, that just kind of shook off my fears that I had. And I just plunged right in and just learned as I went, as I'm sure you've done with your podcasting.
Oh, goodness, yes.
What an opportunity for growth and expansion, when you just dive into something you don't really know about.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into. It is the most exciting ride to do something creative like that, to dive in and not know. But there's moments of bumps and bruises and frustration. So yes, definitely. So tell us what the themes of your books are, because that's the part that I absolutely love, with the idea of reading to children before they're going to sleep. In our society today, so many children, not all of them are going to get read to when they're going to sleep or before they go to sleep. They might be in front of a computer or TV or a phone. And, that can cause, not so great sleep.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about some of the themes that you have.
Sure. So the first book I wrote is called Little Willow. So this is just a poem about why weeping willows weep. And this really started as a poem. I'd just written the first line of why do you weep, little willow? Why do you weep? And then I just kind of turned it into a little story. And it's very simple, but it's about honoring your emotions and that it's perfectly okay to cry when you're frustrated, when you're sad, when you're really happy and excited. Like there's so many reasons we have to shed a few tears in this life. And it's just about embracing that it's perfectly okay to do so. And it's important to be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good message.
And the second one, you're not supposed to pick favorites, but this is my favorite. So this book is called You're Beautiful When, and this is just a book of positive affirmations about beauty from the inside out, about, you're beautiful when you're learning, you're beautiful when you're trying, you're beautiful when you're singing, when you're dancing. And that beauty is real beauty is based on who you are and how you present yourself in this world, so much more so than how you look. Like looks is so secondary, even though that's what's prominently put in our face, especially in this culture that we're in. But I just want to just kind of go back to the roots of, well, real authentic beauty has so much more to do with your character, with your heart, with your thoughtfulness, your kindness. Mm-hmm. And I think the repetitive nature of the book too, this one has a lot of my hypnotherapy in it, where, you're going to plant those seeds and you just keep watering them with the same message over and over. And it just kind of becomes a habit. And I noticed when I was working on this book that I was just seeing beauty in places I wasn't normally tuning into. I'd see my friend laughing and I'm like, you're beautiful when you're laughing. Or I'd see someone gardening. You're beautiful when you're amongst the flowers. Like it just opens your eyes to beauty that is so often overlooked. Yeah. And thirdly is sometimes, this is my quote Debbie Downer book. It's kind of like, it's just about this little artist mannequin that just has just one bad thing happen after the other. And my friend said, well, it's just like bad. And finally at the end, things get good. And I was like, well, yeah, because that's life sometimes. Not every bad day is going to be immediately balanced out with a good one. It's like sometimes there's bad weeks, months. I mean, look at 2020, for goodness sake. So, it's just about getting through tough times and knowing that times are temporary and there's always going to be other times, even if it feels like this is forever. Like there are better things coming around the corner. And then my last book so far, I have other ideas, but this is the last one that's in the world right now. And it's called The Greatest Treasure. And this is the one that's the most traditional story of a children's book. The other ones are written like, with affirmations, and they're not kind of that classic kids book style, but The Greatest Treasure is. And I thought it was really fun to write that one because it's an exciting story about this baby sea otter, and he loses a precious family heirloom. And what's he going to do? Is he going to tell his mom? Is she going to be mad? And his very wise mother, it teaches to him that, what matters most in life is the relationships that we have and the time we spent together, and things are just things. So that one was really fun because I was like, this is a real page turner. And that one's super fun to read too. When I would visit elementary schools, it was always fun to just read the story and get really animated with it and see their eyes light up. And it was just really a good time.
Well, that's so fantastic. Well, Stefanie, I wish everybody could see so you guys, I record when I do my recordings, you only hear the audio, but I actually go on camera with many of the authors. And Stefanie's so beautiful when she shows these books, and a beautiful person, but also the books are gorgeous as well. So I really encourage you listeners, when you're not driving or you can get by the computer, jump on my show notes and make sure you get on Stefanie's website, because you will really appreciate the beauty of these books, not just the messaging. The messaging is gorgeous. And so talk to me a little bit about the artwork, because we talked about that last time. And that was one of my favorite parts of our discussion, is that the artists that you found to help you with all of these stories.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because especially You're Beautiful When, Phyllis Howard, we met through, I had a year of no's. I was trying to find an illustrator for this book, and because I'd done the first one myself, and then I was like, I really want this one really, really superbly done. And a year it took for me to finally find the person who was meant to illustrate this book, Phyllis Howard. I always credit her with this book is beautiful because of her. And my original intent was that every page, just you could take it out and put it on the wall. It's a piece of art. And she absolutely nailed it. It was a tall order. And this was actually the first book she had illustrated. She's a very, very experienced artist, but she'd never done a children's book. So it was an interesting learning process for both of us, and for me to how to collaborate artistically with someone else. And in hindsight, I wish I'd just given her more freedom, now knowing I could completely trust her to do exactly the right thing. But at any rate, I just have this notion that things don't have to be dumbed down for kids to appreciate them. They can appreciate a beautiful work of art just as an adult can. And this way it's enjoyable too for the grown-up that's reading the book with the child, or maybe the older sibling who's reading it. And I just feel like every page, just the illustrations that she created so perfectly complement the affirmation that goes with it together. And and then The Greatest Treasure, this one was illustrated by Heather Gross, who also lives here in Bellingham. And I met her through someone else. It's just interesting, you try to make things happen. And then when you just let go, the show up, right?
It happens, right? And it's never in our timing.
Yes, exactly. Because I didn't even want to write another book at the time. And then this illustrator appeared and I was like, oh, okay. So this one was just really playful. She has such a light style, and she's super talented as well. And these books, they just couldn't be what they are without the contributions of these artists. I mean, they blew me away with their abilities and talents. I couldn't possibly imagine them any other way than that they made them.
And that makes such a huge part for when you're reading to children is the graphics, the images they're going to be placing in there, because words are important. We know that when we're reading to children, but they're going to be drawn to the pictures first. I mean, I'm an adult still drawn to the pictures first. Yes. I am dyslexic, so that fits, right?
Oh.
But so I think it's just wonderful. I love going to your website because like I told you, I'm going to be purchasing some for grandkids gifts. They don't listen to my podcast, so they're never going to. But they're too little. They would never listen to my podcast. But I think they're very, very beautiful. And I just really appreciate the messaging because I think as a parent, my kids are grown up. I will be a grandmother for the third time in April. So I'm very excited. I have a new grandbaby coming.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're just ecstatic. And so I'm hoping to have a set of these at my house to read to this one here and not send them off. But as a parent, to reinforce that beautiful aspect of our children knowing about who they are and what beauty's really about in our society right now is so huge. Yeah. All this affirmation that you're talking about is so important because our society just bombards our children and us.
Yes.
We're less than what we really should be or what we should believe in ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And they say every author writes the book they want to read. And that's just true. It's a true thing. And I look through these books myself when I just need a little pick me up, a little reminder. There's something about saying it on the page that just makes it seem really legitimate, really factual. This is a true thing. Yes. I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I needed this today. And it's really wonderful. So that's why I say they're like all ages books, because I do really feel like grown-ups will benefit from reading them too.
And that's what I think is so wonderful about them is that until your children start reading, you to read to your kids. And I love books when I get to read to my soon-to-be grandchildren that I'll have in my arms that I'm going to benefit from too, or I'm going to enjoy too. And so you're doing work on both ends. So I think that's wonderful. So are they self-published? And if not, what was the process for you as far as the publishing journey?
Yes, I did self-publish all of them. I had done a bunch of research at the get-go to figure out what's the best way to do this. How can I avoid pitfalls? And,
there's a lot to do, right?
Right. Yeah. Good thought. So I self-published them, and, there are pros and cons to both ways. I know of people who have a publisher and wish they had self-published because the publisher has so many authors under their belt. They just really can't put in the time and attention that they would like to receive. And, but on the other hand, when you're self-published, it's like all the workload lands in your lap and you got to really hustle and do what you can. So, I mean, I would love to sit here and say that I'm a New York Times bestselling author. This is what you got to do. And here's the steps. But right now. Not quite there yet.
Someday.
Yes. And I just keep, anyone who wants to write a book, I always tell them, just have a message you want to get out into the world. And if one person reads your book, then it was worth it. Like it's not a numbers game as far as the purpose of putting that creative work out there. And this is something I tell people, and something I need to remind myself, because, I feel sometimes like a failure because, I haven't sold as many copies as I would like, or, I haven't just sat back and watched the sales fly off the shelves on Amazon, but that's okay. It's just so important to do it. Anyone who's brave enough to do it and has the gumption to see it through to the end, sometimes things seem really simple and they're not. Like a
yes,
book seems simple.
Oh, sure, right. Until you do one, and then you're like, "What was that? That was 6 months of my life. I don't even know how I got here."
Exactly, and I've got this skinny little paperback to show for it. It's like, what? No one would possibly know how many hours and tears and all
those tears of frustration and worry. The worry aspect of it. I don't think readers that aren't writers or haven't gone through this process or haven't heard about this from the writer's perspective, there's so much worry that you put into this creative energy too, of like, is anybody going to read it? And if they do read it, what are they going to say? And what if there's negative comments, about it? And how do you deal with all that?
Yes. And that's why it's such an act of bravery, I feel, when anyone actually puts their work out there in the world to just exposes that little part of themselves, and it's a vulnerable thing because people could judge you. People could say it's not good. People could make fun, whatever. And it's like, well, just let people think. They're going to think anyway. So
they're going to have their opinions and everybody gets to have one. Doesn't mean I want to agree with it or hear it.
Exactly.
That's kind of how I look at it. I get it.
And just trust that your books will land where they're supposed to get to.
They will. Yeah.
Some people who it wasn't a good fit for them, oh well, it's going to find its way to the right person that needed to read what you said. So.
Yeah, that's such great insight and advice. And for any of us, because a lot of my listeners are people that are just going on the journey or starting on their journey. They're new in the journey of publishing, and they, if they self-publish, there's just so much, there's excitement to it. So people don't get me wrong. It's a super exciting process to go through. But it's also can be nerve-wracking. And when you do get your first negative comment for whatever you do, if it's whatever, that's where it stings. And we have to remind ourselves we're human. I just went through this. So I put some stuff, anytime you put yourself out there into the world, you expose yourself to the opportunity of somebody to make comments. And this year for me has been out into the world, which has been great. And I've loved it. As a writer and podcasting and everything. But I did get one negative saying that kind of threw me off quite a bit. And it took me 2 or 3 days to come to a resolution of if I was going to respond or not, because you can respond to them or you cannot. You can choose to just internalize it and just do whatever, thank you, or not. And I really felt like I needed to, and I did. And I crafted this nice email and said, thank you. I will always be the first to admit that I'll make mistakes. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And then I told my husband I did that because you didn't have to respond. I go, but for me, I had to. Wow. It was important for me to know that I can come to a peaceful resolution if somebody gives me feedback that I think was kind of nasty behind it. It might be accurate, but you could feel the motivation behind it. So, all of that to say, when you put yourself out in the universe, it's really scary.
It is. And thank goodness there's all this excitement that you have too to counteract that, because there's plenty of reasons not to do it.
Yeah.
Tons. But when you get your first proof copy in your hands and you see a book that was in your mind in your hands and you turn the pages, it's priceless.
It is amazing. It's amazing.
Everything.
That's why we keep doing it, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so you have how many titles again? Because I didn't catch them, didn't count while you were telling you.
So I have 4.
4. So you've done this 4 times.
Yeah.
And you said you have some more floating around for you. So what do you see in this next year? So are you going to be putting out a couple more, one more? What are you working on?
Yeah, so they're kind of just marinating in my mind right now. I've jotted some notes down in my phone and, they just kind of sit there because I don't feel like the ending is quite there yet. Or, do I really want to repeat this whole process again right now with things going on? because it is really time consuming. Though the nice thing is once you get your first one done, I mean, at least then you understand the lingo and you know about margins and bleeds and word count, all that. And you know how to, upload and so it's like, okay, well, if you're going to do one, you might as well keep going because
exactly. You put all this energy into learning it, right?
Exactly. So like, okay, at least I'm not starting from square one. So, I've got my formatted template. I just got to, change the pictures and the words and away I go. But it's just a matter of, again, making sure that it's worthy of a child's time, worthy of the grown-up's time. And just, I don't like to half-ass things, if I'm going to do it, it's going to be done well and properly and to my standards. So, but the main one though in my mind right now is good night gratitude, which is just a practice of body thanks before you go to bed.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, this is one of my self-esteem practices. So, and it's just about positive body image and thanking our bodies for their functionality, for their purpose, and, nothing to do with looks. And so you can do this with your child or do it on your own as a grown-up. I do it myself. And so you just place your hands gently on your head and say, thank you head, place your hands on your ears and thank you ears, place them on your eyes and thank you eyes and thank you mouth. And you just work your way down your body and you do it nice and slow. And it's very calming and relaxing. And this is another hypnotherapy technique, which I would do for the client. I would just do a guided relaxation for them. So this is a way to do it yourself. And also just putting your hands on these body parts. Thank you, hands, and thank you, legs. And, it just makes you remember, like, my body is functioning and it's healthy and it's mobile and it can do all these things, and it's so much more than what I see in the mirror. And I think this is just a really important practice, especially if you have young girls and you get them into this now, because it can really help create a strong foundation for when, as they get older and they, face this world of of social media and
that's all I have to say to that.
Much. Right? I know. It's just I actually have some stats here that I got that 1 in 7 girls are unhappy with their looks by the end of elementary school.
That's so young.
Right?
That is so young.
Yeah. I mean, when I was little, I was just playing and I didn't even consider what I looked like. And now 1 in 7. And then by the age of 14, it's 1 in 3 girls that are unhappy with their looks. And by 13, 80% of girls have applied a filter or used an app to change their appearance in photos. So it's just, we're in this selfie culture and we're just bombarded with the images. And even as a grown up, like, I know better. I know these are photoshopped and that's not real, whatever, but it gets to you,
Oh, it does. Yeah. It does. I admit it. I do the same thing.
So I'm just like, gosh, like, what tools can we provide? How can we kind of build ourselves up against all of this? Because the world doesn't benefit from girls feeling crappy about themselves. But, they do sell a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's true. So what's interesting, my youngest daughter, she's in her late 20s. So her and I just had this conversation this 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, because she went off of Instagram finally. And I was asking her why she went off of Instagram because I wanted to kind of know what her thought process was. Now, this is not to judge anybody else. I'm on Instagram. It's not that. But for her, she was starting to feel really cruddy about herself.
Yeah.
And she's starting to realize that it was trying to seek attention and developing a persona of herself that was very curated. And it didn't make her feel good when she wasn't on Instagram. So everything that she was doing was to place that in that social media space. And she realized she needed to stop and reevaluate who she is and what she's about. And she was even talking about how she needs to do some work where she's giving back to people because she needs to remember how, much she's been given in her life. And I thought that was a really mature, awesome thing, not just because she's my daughter, but because being a woman that grew up, because she is a young woman growing up with this social culture, cut her teeth on the keyboard. She sat on my lap and she had the internet in front of her face her whole life.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see that some people are coming to that resolution, that the social media isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be. And there are plenty of studies that are coming out now about the psychosis that is happening to our children because of the curated versions of the world.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. My favorite one, there's some, really positive, beautiful meme about being yourself and embracing your flaws. And then the picture is like so 1,000% Photoshop. I'm like,
I know.
messages.
I know. Oh, it's so funny. I know. I
Yeah.
remember I went through a stage of living my best life. That was my big thing. I wanted to, because I do feel like I am living my best life. But then when I realized I was saying it, I was like, I don't have to prove that to anybody. I know I'm living this awesome life. I don't have to prove it to the world. I say it 100 times. I gave up that hashtag real fast.
Fired.
Yeah. Well, Stefanie, I just love what you're doing. And for those that aren't necessarily children's book authors, but you've gone through this journey and this process of bringing to life and putting out in the world a very wonderful, creative 4 titles, which is brave 4 times, right? What can you leave for those listeners that are maybe thinking about doing something, they don't know where to go, or they're scared? What would you tell them?
Right. So I would say that if they're writing a children's book, especially, it seems easier than it is. So it's good to prepare yourself that there's a lot of nuances, a lot of steps, and that's the thing too. It's not hard. It's just a lot of steps.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many steps that sometimes people are just like, whoa, like I'm just going to quit right here because I wasn't anticipating this huge staircase to get to my goal. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important just to trust the process, know that you're going to make mistakes, and know that there's going to be moments where you just don't even want to do it. And that's where it's really important that the book that you intend to put out there, you really believe in it, because your belief in this book and this message is going to get you through all of that crud.
Yes.
Between here and there, and there's going to be some crud. And I just think it's just a brave thing to do. I always say, no one's going to write your book for you. Mm-hmm. And that also usually helps people kind of get over that thing where it's like, oh yeah, like no one has your mind, no one has your experiences and your outlook and your perspective on life. So if you have a message, you want to get it out there, it's really, nowadays with Kindle Direct Publishing, that's where I publish my books. You just upload your document and it's available. And you don't have to buy, 10,000 hardcover copies and invest all this money and have boxes of books in your house.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so it's like there's not a lot of, upfront finance involved too, which is really nice. So people don't have to have all this money saved up in order to, so you can just do it really. And also just to be open to waiting for the right things to appear as they come. I'm usually pretty strict on my timelines and I want this to happen now. And it's like, so I just got to breathe.
Yep.
Got to wait. And then, yes. And Phyllis Howard, my beautiful illustrator of Your Beautiful One, is the perfect example of that. It took me a year of people saying no. And she came around and I was like, that's why everyone else said no, so that she could show up. And it's just so perfect. So, this book is my legacy. And if I do nothing else, at least I did this,
Yes.
And it's really important. And I just want to say too, that what you're doing is important. And regardless of how many, I don't know if you have like a total count of listeners per episode or whatever, if you track that stuff, but it's important.
I do, but I don't look at it.
Okay.
I long gave up number games.
Good. Yes, because people who are listening because you have something worthy of being heard, and you're inspiring and creative, and you're using your skills in a way that is new for you. And I think it's very brave, and I congratulate you on the podcast.
Thank you, Stefanie. I so need that because, you get to burn out with anything, and this will be, when I get you out, I think we're going to be getting close to 100 and well over 100 episodes. And you know what, people don't know this about podcasts or authors, that a lot of times we feel like we're giving our craft out into the void. you don't really ever know who's picked up that book, or you don't ever really know who has listened to that episode. So my tip for everybody that's going to go off of what Stefanie said, if you enjoyed something from an author or from a podcaster, just email them. It make their whole day.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes.
You don't even know how much we love to know we're not putting stuff out in the void.
Yes, that is so important. What a great piece of advice you just put out there. Yes, it's just, oh, if just one person emailed me and said, oh, I got your book, blah, 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 I'd be like, oh, you did? Because they don't realize.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I even practiced that on advice for myself this summer. My husband and I took a trip to Yellowstone, and I did my research like a good librarian. And I found this really awesome couple on YouTube, and they did a whole YouTube channel to prepare yourself and your family for long trips vacationing in Yellowstone. They also do all the other national parks. And he's a historian, a history teacher. He did an audio guide and a paper guide, and I bought all of it, right? Because I'm like, I want this when we're in Yellowstone. Yeah. Amazing experience. We popped in the audio guide as we're driving through Yellowstone. I felt like I was in Disneyland. I was like, it was so great. So when I got home, I sent them a picture of us at one of our favorite places and thanked them and told them how much I appreciated all the hard work that they had done. And he was really grateful for the reply. And he replied back to me. But cool story too about this, guys, is that he has just now left his full-time teaching career to work on the business of doing these guides for families. And I applauded him. I emailed him as soon as I heard that. I'm so excited you did that, because that's inspiration to any of us that want to do a business that is around our passions. And he got to do that. He got to leave his teaching job to do his passion of helping people in the United States and how to guide those. So long story short, I practice what I preach.
Yes, yes.
You just never know how much your encouraging words is going to help that person, that creator, that writer, that author at that very moment when they're about ready to give up. So true. So, and Stefanie, you've been one of those people because you found me, which is exciting. and then we had to go through this whole redo it again, but it's fun the second time around.
Okay.
So Stefanie, you have a website. I will make sure that is on the show notes because I want everybody that listens to this episode to definitely go. You guys, I just, I try not to show favorites because we're not supposed to, but I love Stefanie's books. I think they're beautiful, and the messaging is wonderful. So definitely go on there. Make sure you email her and tell her you heard her on this podcast. That would be so much fun. And Stefanie, any last parting words you want to share with our listeners about you, your books, or what's coming up for you in the future here?
Oh, yeah. So just before I forget, so for The Greatest Treasure and Your Beautiful When, a portion of sales
I forgot about this,
from those books goes to Bridget Collins Family Support Center here in Bellingham. And for The Greatest Treasure, it goes to either an ocean conservation charity or Animals as Natural Therapy. I kind of go back and forth here. So I think it's important to have, just even if it's, just a quarter per book, 50 cents, whatever, just a little piece that just goes to something else. It just kind of makes it feel even more valuable in the world, that, and people love that too. And it's a win-win. And I've been doing a buy one, give one when I go to the markets. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. So for every copy of one of my books that's sold, a copy of Your Beautiful One gets donated to Bridget Collins. And it's wonderful because it just keeps on going. And I got to bring this stack of books to Bridget Collins to donate to the kids there. This is an organization that supports children who have suffered violence, neglect, and sexual abuse. So I just felt if anyone should know that they're beautiful based on who they are, not what they look like or what they've been through, it's those kids. So
it's great. I got chills. I love that.
It just, once I thought of that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what these books are here for. Like, this is it. Like I didn't write these books so I could sit back and watch the money roll in, though that'd be nice.
Yeah. No. So I know that you're giving back and that you're giving back to those specific charities. That's wonderful. So another reason people go on our website and buy the books so extra copies can go to that organization. That's a wonderful cause.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Well, Stefanie, I love talking with you. Thank you for doing this again with me. I would love to have you back after you write your next book. Let's bring it on. Maybe we'll do a video this time so you can actually read and show the book while you're reading it. So listeners, we're not going to have Stefanie read any of the books because they're shorter, they're picture books. But if you're interested in that part, let me know and I'll make sure she can come on my YouTube channel soon.
That'd be fun.
That would be a lot of fun. But I might have to
lighting.
I might have to fix my makeup for that one.
Exactly. It's totally different when you know no one's going to see you.
Exactly. Oh, here we are going down that rabbit hole. Well, Stefanie, it's been a beautiful time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Make sure you jump on the show notes and find the author, buy their books, write a review. And most importantly, you can find out more about me and my projects at one of my two websites, www.squishpin.com or theauthorslibrarian.com. And until next time, this is Vikki J. Carter, the Authors Librarian, signing off.